The CFA course in India is an extremely desirable course. A lot of candidates who are interested in finance and want to make their career in the finance domain pick CFA as their preferred course because the job opportunities after CFA are quite significant. Given that we train approximately 4,000 to 5,000 students every year for the CFA course alone, we often get calls from students who want to know what are the strategies that they can deploy when they are preparing in order to successfully pass their CFA exam in one attempt. So we thought we would compile all of this information that we have over years of training candidates and so many candidates, put it in one video, so then hopefully you all watching it out there can find this helpful and hopefully pass your CFA in one attempt. When it comes to the CFA examination, what are some strategies that you can deploy in order to successfully clear your levels 1, 2 and 3? Well, the very first thing for level 1 candidates, because that's obviously where you start, you proceed in a sequential or a chronological order where you do level 1 first, then level 2 and finally you do level 3. So when you're starting your preparation for level 1, the first thing that you should do is you should understand the basics of these concepts. Now, with the way the exam is going to be conducted in 2024, and that is when most of you will go for your attempt, they're removing a lot of basic concepts from the curriculum, as in these concepts will not be tested anymore in the exams. The CFA body expects you to learn about these concepts at a grassroots level and then be able to apply these concepts in the CFA level 1 examination. To give you an example, in quantitative methods, one of the very first topics that you learned was time value of money. And of course, this was tested in the exams. All the concepts in CFA are then based on time value of money. Obviously, if you're doing anything related to finance, you need to understand this concept and how compounding and discounting happens. Now, what CFA has done is they have removed this topic from their core curriculum and they have put it in the supplementary material. So the very first thing you should do is pick up on these basic concepts. Believe me, do not try to cut corners when you're preparing for the CFA course. You want to be as thorough with your prep as possible. Pick up these basic topics even if they are not a part of the CFA curriculum, because to pass the exam, you will need these concepts. So spend an adequate amount of time getting to know the basics and understanding the basics from a fundamental understanding perspective. That brings me to my point number 2, which is being good with numbers. Now, CFA is not heavily math oriented. You don't learn subjects like integration or derivatives in the mathematical format. Of course, you have derivatives, which is essentially hedging, so it is a part of the markets, but you do not have derivatives or calculus, so to say, in the CFA examination. However, you do need to have a basic understanding of how numbers work. There is no shame in admitting that a lot of students do struggle with numbers. So if you're one of these students who are not very friendly with numbers or numbers scare you a little bit, pick up some courses on the side and get better with numbers, because you will need to understand basic mathematical functions in order to pass the CFA level 1 examination. My third tip to you is obviously focus on the practical aspect, which is the numericals, but also focus on theory. Where a lot of students fail the CFA exam is the fact that they're not very good with theory. They spend all of their time practicing numericals, practicing formulas, practicing various tables that you have to create in the exam or various models that you have to create in the exam, but they do not spend an adequate amount of time on theory. Often the difference between a candidate passing or failing the CFA examination are subjects like ethics, which is a pure theory-based subject. I personally believe, and from what I've seen in my experience at Zell dealing with so many students, is that if you read through your theory well enough, and by well enough, I mean you read it at least 3 times, and you're simultaneously making your notes when you're reading the theory material, chances are that you can score fairly decently on your theory part of the exam, which is why you do need to focus on theory. It is well and good knowing the weighted average cost of capital formula and being able to solve the numericals, but you also need to know the theory behind the concept, for example. So spend some time on the theory aspect as well. Guys, the next point that I want to emphasize is that you need to take a lot of practice tests and a lot of mocks. Now, what happens is, obviously, when you're watching a recording or when you're in a lecture and the faculty is solving the sum, it appears to be very, very easy. But when you go back and practice the sum or the numerical on your own, you will often find your pain points. You will find concepts that you're not very good with. You will find certain parts of the concept that you're not able to crack on your own. which is why you need to practice your question bank multiple times and you need to take timed mocks. What I mean by a timed mock is you need to sit in a room exactly like you would in the real exam, time yourself, give yourself that pressure of, performing under a running clock, and it will put you in good stead for the examination. My next point to all of you is to make running notes while you're studying for the exam. Now, each book for CFA is obviously quite vast. There are a lot of concepts covered in each and every book. So what you need to do when you're preparing for the exam is make your own notes. Another thing that you should be doing when you're practicing questions is to not just read the explanation for the right answer, because that's what most students do, but you also need to read the explanation for the wrong answers, and that is how you build very, very strong concepts. It will be a little time consuming for you to read explanation for the wrong answers, but trust me, in the long run, it is worth it. Guys, finally, a few things that you need to take care of before you sit for the exam. Make sure you're good with your financial calculator, because that is very, very important to pass the exam. So make sure you're hands-on with that. Learn it very, very well. The second thing you need to know is what is tested in the exam. Now, a lot of students don't know the way LOS or learning outcome statements work. So spend some time reading about it and what is important, not important from an exam perspective. And finally, you need to give yourself adequate time to prepare. Don't expect to complete the entire syllabus, or don't expect to complete your studies in a month before the exam. That is not how you will pass. You need to study quite consistently. And I believe if you deploy these tips that I've discussed in the video, you will be successful at the CFA Level 1 exam. Time and time again, these tips and tricks have worked out for students. So try them and do let me know how it goes for you. If you have any questions that I've not answered in this video, leave a comment below and we will get back to you.